Last Tuesday, I found a single shoelace under the couch. Just a shoelace, dark green, frayed at one end, tied in a double knot. Why is that important? Well, here's the thing. I don't wear green shoes. I haven't worn any shoes with laces in months. I've been working from home, living in slippers. And my wife, Inez, doesn't own a single pair of sneakers with laces. She wears boots, slides, sometimes barefoot, which drives me insane because she leaves little crescent moons of dirt on the kitchen tiles. So, where did the shoelace come from? I know it's a stupid detail, but stupid details are how my brain works. I work in tax mapping. I see patterns for a living, county lines, parcel borders, GPS overlays. If something's 1 inch off, I feel it in my jaw. That shoelace was off. I asked her about it casually. Hey, weird question, but do you know whose this is? She glanced at it for maybe a second, then said, Oh, must have fallen out of the laundry. That made no sense. It was under the couch, but I let it go. I always let things go. Inez is intimidating, not in a loud way, more like the quiet tension of standing next to a plugged-in toaster after you've pushed the lever down. You never know when something will pop. The truth is, I'd been keeping a list for weeks, not a real list, just a mental tab. She started taking calls in the laundry room. She changed her phone password. She stopped asking me to walk the dog with her. She removed our wedding date from her Instagram bio. Stupid stuff, petty. But it added up. And then came the moment. Last Friday, I made her favorite dinner, cacio e pepe, the only thing I know how to cook without Googling every step. I set the table, lit a candle, even played that acoustic playlist she likes, the one with the guy who sounds like he's always crying into a coffee cup. She came home, said she wasn't hungry, didn't look at me, just dropped her bag and walked straight to the bedroom. I followed her, asked if everything was okay. She said she was just tired. I tried to reach for her hand. She pulled away, and then, with the coldest voice I've ever heard from her, she said, Don't touch me tonight. Not angry, not sad, just done. Something inside me just shut off. Like someone yanked the power cord out of my chest. She got in bed, rolled away. I stood in the hallway for 15 minutes, staring at the door like it was going to open itself and rewind the last 5 seconds. I thought about that shoelace, about the missing charger I found under the sink, the sock in the glove box, the double-texted "can't talk now" she sent on Tuesday. And I made a decision. I stayed up all night. I didn't pack much, just the important things. Laptop, deodorant, the little wooden duck my uncle gave me when I turned 8. At 6:12 a.m., I stood at the foot of the bed. She was asleep, peaceful, maybe dreaming about a man with green shoelaces. And I whispered it, not out of anger, but because I knew I had to. Goodbye. Then I left the apartment, but here's where it gets weird. Because when I checked the dog walking tracker on her phone later that day, I found out she hadn't walked the dog in 3 weeks. So who had? After I left, I didn't go far. Just checked into a cheap motel, 2 exits off the highway. The kind with thin walls, flickering ice machines, and bedspreads that smell like reheated French fries. I couldn't stop replaying that moment, her turning her back on me, saying those 4 words like they meant nothing. Don't touch me tonight. I kept trying to assign it some benign meaning. Stress, PMS, a bad day, but the list of normal explanations was getting outnumbered by the weird stuff I couldn't ignore anymore. That's when I remembered the tracker app. See, Inez insisted we install this dog walking tracker when we adopted our rescue beagle, Clover, said it would help keep tabs on his exercise. The app logs every walk, time, distance, GPS route. Total overkill, but fine. I went along with it. So I logged in, out of boredom at first, except she hadn't taken him on a single walk in 21 days. None, zero, which made no sense because every evening for the past month she'd say, taking Clover for a walk, grab the leash, and vanish for about 45 minutes. I even saw her return sometimes, leash in hand, Clover trotting behind her, tongue out like he'd been jogging. So I triple-checked the dates. Maybe the app glitched. Nope. My last logged walk was me, a short one on the third. Every other slot after that was blank, empty. So I called the front desk, asked if pets were allowed, and brought Clover to the motel. Then I did something stupid. I sent her a text. Hey, not trying to start anything, just wanted to say Clover's with me. You left his water bowl empty again. I waited. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. No reply. So I opened her Instagram. She had posted a story, a selfie, mirror pic. She was in workout clothes. Caption said, "Nothing like a long walk to clear your head." I stared at that emoji for a long time. The paw print. She was pretending to walk the dog for someone, but not for me, not even for Clover. So who was she performing for? And more importantly, who was walking beside her? I couldn't stop thinking about that fake dog walking post. It sat in my brain like a splinter. The caption, the heart, the paw emoji. I mean, who lies about walking a dog? What's the point? I kept opening and closing the app like something would magically update. 21 days, still nothing. Then I realized something. Just because she wasn't logging walks didn't mean walks weren't happening. The app tracks whoever is logged in. I was on my profile. But what if someone else had used the same leash and walked him without the app running? Clover's leash has a little air tag on it, Inez insisted. Said if he ever got off the leash or ran away, we'd find him. The air tag pings a location every few minutes when it's moving. I hadn't thought about it in months, so I pulled up Find My. There were old location trails, scattered and jagged like broken breadcrumbs. Most were ours from weeks ago. But then I saw something strange. A walk path dated just 3 days ago. It didn't start from our house. It started from 2 blocks over. It was a 42-minute walk, ending right back at that same spot. Not our house, not any park, just a residential street I didn't recognize. I zoomed in. Birchfield Lane. I tried to remember if we knew anyone who lived there. Nothing came to mind. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have. I put Clover in the car and drove there. It was nearly dusk when I parked, a quiet neighborhood, lots of brick homes and perfectly trimmed hedges. I kept thinking this was dumb, irrational, but my chest was buzzing in that way it does when your brain already knows something your body hasn't caught up with yet. I walked Clover slowly, trying to look casual, and that's when I saw it. A house with a blue SUV in the driveway, parked crooked, back windows tinted, and next to it, a familiar shape on the porch. Inez. She wasn't alone. She was laughing, holding a coffee mug, sitting beside a man I didn't recognize. Shaved head, bare feet, wearing a faded band tee like he belonged in some early 2000s, band no one listened to anymore. They looked comfortable, like this was normal. Clover barked once, loud. Inez turned. Her face dropped. Not surprised, just blank, like someone forgot to animate her expression. Then she got up, said something to the guy, and walked inside without even waving. The man looked directly at me. No smile, no nod, nothing. Just stared like he was the one who'd been wronged. I turned around and walked back to the car. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat in the driver's seat for 15 minutes, trying to understand what kind of reality I had wandered into. Not just betrayal, rehearsed betrayal, a second life, with a porch and coffee mugs and someone else walking my dog. But this story doesn't end here, because what I found in the car later that night, tucked under the passenger seat, made everything even worse. And this time, it wasn't a shoelace. I couldn't sleep that night. Clover was curled up next to me, snoring gently, while I just lay there staring at the ceiling of the motel room, my brain playing reruns of that porch scene over and over, her mug, his bare feet, the silence between us that said more than words ever could. I kept trying to make it logical. Maybe it was just a friend. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. But then, why lie about the walks? Why stage the Instagram stories? Why disappear inside without a word? Around 2 a.m., I sat up, restless, and decided to clean out the car. Just busy work. something to keep my hands moving so my mind didn't explode. That's when I found it. Under the passenger seat, folded up, barely visible, was a crumpled receipt. Gas station, Birchfield Lane, dated last week. Nothing unusual, until I saw the note scribbled across the top in a blue pen. Use the back door. S. That stopped me cold. Who was S? I stared at the handwriting. It wasn't hers. I know her loops. Her little heart dot over the I in her name. This was rushed, messy, like someone wrote it while watching their back. I checked the time on the receipt. 11:42 p.m. She told me she'd gone to bed early that night with a migraine. I remember tiptoeing around the apartment in the dark, thinking I was being considerate. I wasn't alone in the apartment. She just wasn't there. That note, 4 words, 1 letter, made everything real. This wasn't emotional distance. This was planning, logistics, hidden entrances. And now I needed to know who S was, because something told me I'd already met them. I just didn't know it yet. I stared at the note for almost an hour, just turning it over in my hands like it might say something else if I looked at it long enough. Use the back door, S. 4 words, and yet it felt like they split the ground open beneath me. It meant she wasn't just cheating. She was being coached. Someone was helping her. Someone who knew about me. Someone who didn't want me to know about them. It made my skin crawl. I should have let it go. I should have taken that receipt, folded it back up, and moved on. But you know what happens when you get just enough truth to feel like you're close. You start convincing yourself the rest is within reach. And that's how I got stupid. The next morning, I drove back to Birchfield Lane. It was around 9:30 a.m., just late enough that people would be at work, just early enough that I felt like I wasn't technically stalking. I parked 3 houses down from the one with the blue SUV, left Clover in the car, and started walking. No real plan, just a sick pull in my gut. When I got to the house, I looked up at the porch. No one. Curtains closed, the SUV was gone. But then I noticed something I hadn't seen before. A sticker on the mailbox. It was faded, but I could just make out the name on it. S. Weller. I don't know why, but seeing a name made it all feel heavier. S. Not just a letter. A person, an identity. A man, probably. A man with a back door and bad handwriting, and my wife sitting on his porch in workout clothes, pretending to walk our dog. I pulled out my phone and started typing the name into Google. First, just the name, then with our town, then with real estate, because Inez had made some vague mention a month ago about talking to someone about listing options, like we were ever selling the apartment. She brushed it off as fantasy talk. Zillow daydreams, she said. But there he was, Shane Weller, independent realtor, recently divorced, lives, or at least used to, on Birchfield Lane. There was a profile picture on his business site, same guy, bald, faded tattoo on the forearm, generic smile like he's trying to sell you confidence. I stared at the screen and something in me snapped. I walked straight up the driveway. I didn't knock. I didn't ring. I walked around the side of the house just to see. The back gate was cracked open, the patio door too, and sitting just inside on the kitchen counter was my favorite ceramic mug, the one with the octopus wrapping around the sides. I bought it on our honeymoon. She said it was too ugly to drink from. And now it was sitting next to a French press in a stranger's kitchen. I felt sick, like my body didn't belong to me anymore. My heart wasn't racing. It just stopped, flatline. And then I heard footsteps. Inside, coming closer, I ran. I didn't look back. I just got in my car and peeled off like I'd stolen something, which, in a way, I guess I had. The truth. But here's the thing. Inez called me 20 minutes later. Her first words, "Why were you near Shane's house?" She didn't ask how I was. She didn't say she missed me. She didn't even ask where I'd gone when I left. She asked why I was near his house. And that's when I realized. She already knew I was gone. She just didn't care. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at the screen. Her name lit up like a dare. I let it ring out the first time. She called again. Then a text came in. "You can't just disappear and show up at Shane's house like that. What are you doing? Not where are you? Not are you okay? Just this cold, sharp concern about him, like he was the one I betrayed. I hadn't even told her I knew who he was. But she didn't bother pretending. So I called her back. My hands were shaking. Not because I was scared, because I realized I'd never really known her. Not truly. And I wasn't sure what version I was about to meet on the other end of the call. She answered immediately. Her voice was calm, too calm, like she'd been waiting for this moment and already rehearsed it. Are you following me now? She asked. I laughed, but it came out hollow. Are you serious? You lied about the dog, the walks, the guy, the mug, everything, and you're worried I followed you? Silence. Then she sighed. Lowell, we were already done. You just didn't notice. That sentence cut deeper than anything she could have admitted, because she meant it. In her mind, I was an old chapter she'd forgotten to close, an open tab on a browser she stopped clicking weeks ago. So, who is he? I asked, even though I already knew. Someone who listens to me, she said. Someone who doesn't make me feel like a to-do list item. That one hit me harder than I expected, because the worst part is I knew what she meant. I had gotten comfortable, distracted, distant even. But I never thought she'd just replace me quietly, like switching out batteries in a remote. I asked her one last question. Why didn't you just tell me? She waited a few seconds too long, then said, because I wasn't sure if you'd let me go. Then the line went dead. After that call, I didn't hear from her for 3 days. No texts, no check-in, no apology. It was like I had evaporated, and she was fine breathing without me. I wish I could say I used that time to reflect or heal. I didn't. I spiraled. I went through old voicemails, old emails, reread notes she'd left on the fridge months ago, like they held some kind of secret code. I wanted to find the moment she started slipping away, the exact breath where love turned into tolerance and tolerance turned into silence. That's when I remembered the backup drive. We'd shared a cloud folder years ago. Nothing dramatic, just a space for joint files, budget spreadsheets, vacation photos, recipes we never tried. She rarely used it, but I remembered once, maybe 2 years back, she dumped a bunch of personal journal entries into a hidden folder for safekeeping after a laptop crash. She asked me to recover them. I had, and I never looked at them until now. I hesitated for a long time. Something about reading someone's unfiltered thoughts feels like breaking into a locked room you weren't supposed to know existed, but she'd already built another life without telling me. I figured truth didn't owe her privacy anymore. The folder was still there. Titled Blue Hours. Inside were 23 documents. Most were short, stream of consciousness rants, ideas for poems, maybe something between journaling and self-therapy. But one file stood out. It was named The List, all lowercase. I opened it. There were 20 items, all bullet points. No explanation, no context, just lines. Here are a few I still remember, almost word for word. I hate that he narrates everything like he's in a movie. He makes me feel like a roommate with a spreadsheet. I want to feel wanted, not scheduled. I still remember how Shane smelled in October. I don't think I'm afraid of losing him. I think I'm afraid I already have. I fake sleep to avoid talking. That last one hit me like a brick. I had felt that, the nights I lay there in the dark, whispering goodnight to someone already gone, hoping she'd whisper it back. She wasn't asleep. She was avoiding me. I should have stopped reading, but I couldn't, because the list ended with something I didn't expect, something so quiet it screamed. He's not a bad man, but I'm a worse woman when I'm with him. I just sat there, staring at the screen, trying to decide whether that was an insult or a confession. Maybe both. And maybe, deep down, I knew what it meant. She didn't leave because I was evil. She left because I made her feel small, like something inside her dimmed when she was near me, and Shane, with his coffee mugs and back doors, made her feel bright again. I didn't cry. I felt nothing at all. But that night, I packed everything for real. the motel key, the leash, my laptop, and a box of things she hadn't asked about, anniversary cards, ticket stubs, and the small ceramic duck I bought her on our first road trip. I was going to return them, and I was going to ask one last question, not to win her back, just to see if she'd even look me in the eye when I asked it. The morning I went back, I didn't feel like a man seeking revenge. I didn't want closure that came with shouting, or guilt, or trying to make her feel what I felt. I just wanted honesty, not the version you give during a breakup to protect someone's feelings, but the kind that doesn't need to be dressed up. I texted her ahead of time, told her I had a box of her things and wanted to leave it with her in person. She agreed, almost too quickly, sent a time, said she'd be alone. When I got to the apartment, she opened the door slowly, like she wasn't sure if I was real or just a part of the past catching up. She looked tired, not unwell, just like someone who had finally stopped pretending she wasn't exhausted. We sat at the kitchen table. I placed the box between us. She didn't open it, just stared at it like it might bite. "I read your list," I said. She didn't flinch, just nodded. "I figured you might." There was no anger in her voice, no defense, and for the first time in a long time, I realized we weren't fighting anymore. We weren't even trying to win. We were just two people sitting in the ruins of something we'd both helped burn down. "I only have one question," I said. She looked up at me, waiting. "Was there ever a version of us that made you happy? Or did I imagine all of it?" Her expression softened in a way I hadn't seen in months. She leaned back in her chair, exhaled, and said, "No, you didn't imagine it. We were happy. For a while, you made me feel safer than I've ever felt. That was real." I believed her. She continued, "But I started shrinking, and I didn't know how to ask you to notice. And by the time I tried, I'd already stopped being honest with myself." There was silence after that, but it wasn't painful. It was still, like the moment after a storm when you're not sure if it's over, but you're grateful for the pause. I stood up. She did too. We didn't hug. That would have felt dishonest, but she did place a hand on the box and said, "Thank you for giving this back." I smiled, small. "You left a lot behind. I figured you'd want something to remember it by." She smiled back, this time genuinely. "I remember it. The good parts." That was enough. That was 6 months ago. I moved to a smaller apartment closer to the river. I see Clover every other weekend. Yes, she kept him, and no, I didn't fight it. He's better off with her, and I visit so often it doesn't feel like goodbye. I started therapy, started cooking actual meals instead of eating crackers over the sink. I got promoted, bought a used bike. I learned how to enjoy quiet again without needing someone to fill it. And the funny thing is, I don't hate her. I don't hate Shane either, because sometimes people drift, not because they don't love you, but because they don't know how to stay when they stop loving themselves around you. I'm learning to be someone I like again. That's enough. So if you've been through it, if you're sitting there with a metaphorical shoelace under your couch, wondering if it means something, I'll say this. Trust the small things, but don't let them turn you bitter. Let them wake you up. Then start over, not for revenge, not for answers, but because you deserve the version of your life that doesn't ask you to disappear to keep someone else comfortable. And that version, still out there.